Welcome back to Son of Chelsea. Daniel Childs here for my team selector and preview. Thoughts, feelings, fears, concerns and hopes. All of the above in terms of this Newcastle game on Sunday afternoon in the Premier League. It is a huge game. They all are. The remaining 3 Premier League games of Chelsea's season are defining for whether this season will be deemed a success or failure. In my eyes, but I think in many people's eyes, right, whether Chelsea qualify for the Champions League or not. The great thing sitting here before kickoff, obviously, is going into this game without the dread or kind of lack of confidence or evidence that Chelsea could show up and put in a brilliant display. Because before Liverpool, there wasn't a lot of evidence and reason to feel optimistic in a big game against a better opponent, against a team who possess elite talent. But I think the momentum, the positivity that came from that win over Liverpool, which some people dismiss it when I say label it, it's like one of the biggest wins in years. And maybe in a couple of weeks' time, that will look like silly analysis. However, I do think for the way this game has been, amped up, has been talked about for weeks, it was so key that Chelsea walked into this game with much more sense of confidence, actually a platform to build off, which was the Liverpool performance, now getting to the Europa Conference League final as well. And I think that's very important. It's now not a must win, but I think it's a must not lose. I think for not only the momentum of last week, but also just being against your rivals, taking a point of them, going to St James's Park, a place where Chelsea, historically in my life, have never had great joy. We've had a few nice runs, actually more recently. There was a massive spell where we barely won there, and that was pre the Newcastle takeover. So this is the scenario that's cropped up. Chelsea are facing a team that also want to qualify for the Champions League, and Enzo Maresca will hopefully, with his players, put out a performance and a tactical display that can get Chelsea a positive result. As I say, that doesn't necessarily mean a win. I think, a point is not the worst result, because that probably does leave you in a situation where you have to win your final 2, dependent on other results. But at the very least, Chelsea walk into this game with a ton more confidence than they had, I think, a week ago, especially a month ago. I think a lot of us did not see Chelsea having any chance of winning this game based on their performance level. There obviously is a difference now, and that's how quickly things can change in football. But there are still some concerns. The last win at St James's Park came in October of 2021 under Thomas Tuchel, Reece James getting a double. That was right near or just after the takeover, if I remember rightly. So yeah, very different Newcastle side. If you look at them this year, they've won 3 of their last 5. Eddie Howe's obviously done an amazing job. That massive win at Wembley against Liverpool in March was a huge historic moment, very much cementing of the progress that has been made by Eddie Howe and winning on such a big occasion. Alexander Isak, top scorer. I mean, you just look at some of the numbers. He's 23 goals so far this season, 29 when you combine that with assists. In terms of wide threats, Jacob Murphy has actually been a really productive creator for Newcastle this season. Top for assists and big chances created. Anthony Gordon is there for chances, but Murphy is maybe an underrated player in the sense that, you look at the talent of Anthony Gordon, which very much has flourished in recent years. Obviously, you look at Alexander Isak, you look at Bruno Guimaraes. You look at other players within this Newcastle team who maybe gain the spotlight, but, it's credit to Murphy that he's remained a consistent player in this first team, and obviously is someone that Eddie Howe relies upon on a regular basis. I think big things here. No Joe Linton, or it's believed Joe Linton may not even play the remainder of this season, which isn't very long. Eddie Howe gave more positive quotes in his press conference, but no Joe Linton is massive. His physicality, and physicality is a big part of what makes Newcastle a very threatening team. The size, the stature, the aggression to the way they play the game, their ability at set pieces with the height of, say, Dan Burn that we saw, of course, brilliantly orchestrated in that final against Liverpool, right? They do the basic things very well. They will play down the channels. They will use their speed in attack. They will be threatening at set pieces. They know the dark arts in the game as well. We've know that they've been very good at riling up opposition teams. So you've really got to confront that. But Joe Linton's ability on and off the ball as a central midfielder is huge for them. The way he covers ground, the way he's able to link up with others, and just kind of be a really big energy in this team. I think him not being there, I'm not saying when you look at the rest of their midfielders, the likes of Bruno Guimaraes, who we know is a brilliant midfielder on his day, Joe Willock too has obviously developed at Newcastle, and Tonali's had a good season. It's not that they're awful without him, but I do think that Joe Linton, just watching Newcastle and listening to Newcastle fans and people who watch Newcastle, how influential he can be. So I think maybe that is a plus for Chelsea. Sven Botman might be returning in defence as well, with Fabian Schär and Dan Burn, the centre-backs last week, with Cobham Academy graduate Livramento on the left, Trippier on the right. So it's going to be a tight game, and I think, Isak really is the one that stands out because he's the one in a tight game as a centre-forward that kind of possesses that clinical edge that Chelsea still lack, or we feel we lack as a focal point, right? And Newcastle have had that, and he's been able to drag them through difficult moments. That's what an elite centre-forward does for you. It really does on a consistent basis. So, moving into Chelsea, probably one of the easier lineups I've done. I don't think Maresca, based on what I saw on Thursday against Stuart Gordon, is going to radically change things based on what he did against Liverpool. And I'm not sure why you would, given how well it worked. Physically and profile-wise, and the style of opponent may make you think there's a chance to rotate. But really, I think my logic remains the same. Like the way Chelsea approached that game against Everton, a team who sit back a lot more, and, maybe a bit more direct. Obviously not to the same quality and threat as Newcastle, but, compared to Liverpool, right, like you look at Newcastle, it's not going to be the same game. They're not going to press us as highly. There are going to be periods where maybe they're going to look to transition because the speed they have in transition is so devastating, and we've seen them exploit teams a number of times. And Maresca spoke about how he wanted Chelsea to have a lot more of the ball than they did against Liverpool. However, Newcastle are still at home. There is just a natural thing when you're at home, and this is a big 6-pointer, whatever you want to call it, Champions League playoff. That crowd is going to be willing their team on, as crowds at Stamford Bridge do, as crowds to with their home team. They want to see their own team attack. So there is different to an away game, right? I think there will still be an incentive on Newcastle to try and take a hold of this game, because to both teams, psychologically and just the reality of the Premier League table currently, you've got a direct chance to take points off your rivals. So that's going to bring tension, that's going to bring nerves, that's going to bring kind of a small margin for error. But, I think also will mean that maybe Newcastle are a little bit more assertive than they would be. Although they're above Chelsea in the table, they've still got to go away to Arsenal, who also don't really have Champions League wrapped up yet. So, for them in the fixture list, it isn't exactly plain sailing. So this is obviously a huge game for them as it is for Chelsea. But as I say, not radical change. I think Rob Sanchez will start in goal. He's obviously, gained praise, made some big saves, kept clean sheets in recent weeks. I just hope we can get to the end of the season without any more major blunders, because we've had so many with Sanchez. But, it's credit to him at a key point in the season. He's put in some good performances. He needs to be so far drastically better than he was at St James's Park last year. One of the worst goalkeeping performances. And I know we're talking about Rob Sanchez here, but terrible, terrible day. Caicedo, I think, will play this inverted right back / central midfield role. Reece James was obviously taken off in midweek. However, I just still think that what's worked so well in recent weeks from Maresca, how the team looks more fluid, looks more connected, the ability to elevate the game of players further up the pitch. I just don't know why you'd want to maybe tamper with that right now. So I think Caicedo will play that role. And sure, again, it's against another team that possess wide threats, but we saw what Caicedo did against Cody Gakpo. Not exactly a slow player, not exactly a blunt player out wide. He can be very threatening, and I think that gave me a lot of confidence that you could use it against a team that look a lot wider than usual. So I think Caicedo will start. Trev, obviously brilliant against Liverpool. Colwell will also start here. Cucurella was taken off at half-time against Stuart Gordon, will start here as well. Lavia, man at the moment, man that's gained so much praise, rightly so. And when you think about a Newcastle team who maybe will want to sit and try and hit on transition, or at times Chelsea are going to have to be a little bit more smart and subtle with the way they try and build up at times during this game. That ability of Lavia to play those line breaking passes, to find the ball to the feet of Enzo Fernandez, to the feet of Cole Palmer, and get Chelsea moving quickly and in kind of their own transition opportunities is obviously huge, right? And Lavia has made such a big difference at such a key stage of the season. Enzo Fernandez scored in his last game. Can he add yet another big goal to his CV this season? He has become kind of known this year. It's been one of the good traits of him as the season has gone on, of stepping up even away from home. And, putting himself there, getting inside the 6-yard box as he did against Liverpool and stepping up with a big goal. We need one tomorrow. Cole Palmer now transformed. Hopefully Cole Palmer back to the Palmer that many people love. I mean, when you think way back to October, the last time we faced Newcastle in the Premier League, that pass for that first goal where Chelsea actually did hit Newcastle brilliantly on transition and really exploited the lack of pace in their defence. I mean, I wonder again, is that something that Maresca will be looking at and thinking, can I try and replicate that at St James's Park if there are periods of the game when Newcastle were looking to attack and Chelsea do what Newcastle want to do to Chelsea? So yeah, obviously Palmer, huge moment for him, and hopefully that will propel him on to have a really, really strong end to the season. Neto, I think, will start. Got a full rest in midweek. He also set up the first goal for Enzo. I know a lot of people, criticise, and I think rightly so, his lack of end product, but it's maybe a little bit harsh. Again, Sancho has had some good moments. Tyreek George has had some good moments. I just think that, Pedro Neto and Noni Madueke, for me, are kind of the starting Premier League wingers at the moment. Noni's doing so well at left wing. We're so excited by what we're seeing with him there. Again, why do you want to halt that? Why do you not want to have that in the team? And I just think it seems to me the work rate, especially off the ball of both Noni and Neto, that I thought was brilliant at times last week, I think will be maintained in such a big game. And obviously, I think Nicholas Jackson will start the game again. He was really the only negative point of the Liverpool game. However, I think, it's just about, for him, the annoying thing is, it's not a case of there's nothing there to kind of work on. It's that last week it was just offsides. Like, if he's just a bit more intelligent with his runs, because it's not like he's a slow player. He can make those runs. We know he's got the speed in transition, and we know he can be a good focal point. We know he can link up well with the likes of Cole Palmer. It's just about finding that chemistry again, because I think that, again, he can offer Chelsea a lot, especially in transition. But obviously that was the negative of last week. So I think Jackson, though, will maintain his place. I do. I think so much of the rotation that was done on Thursday was preparing the team for this game, the first team. So I think that's what we'll see on Sunday. Huge game. Obviously, there's still 2 more to go on after this. We don't know what's happening in the other games, right? I'm recording this. Man City are playing Southampton right now. I expect they win that comfortably. Nottingham Forest are playing Leicester or West Ham this weekend. You can't control that. All Chelsea can do is control the games they've got. And the good thing is, at the moment, is because we're playing direct rivals, it kind of is in your hands if you can win these games. I mean, Chelsea win tomorrow. I spoke last week about that being a huge win. I think this would even be, elevated above that in terms of, I really do think if Chelsea win tomorrow, they're on the brink, because you've got Man United next week at Stamford Bridge, and then, of course, you face Forest on the final day. So there is a huge opportunity here, but I do think it's must not lose. So those are my thoughts. Please let me know yours, as ever, in the comments below. Follow me across the socials at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.